Welcome, everyone, to another podcast from Still Point Radio. Wherever you may be, sit back, relax, tune in, don't tune out, and enjoy.
I know you're gonna dig this.
It's the freaky bees knees that you need to see to be free in the living tree of unity. It's the freaky bees knees that you need to see to be free in the living tree of unity. It's the freaky bees knees that you need to see to be free in the living tree of unity. It's the freaky bees knees that you need to see to be free, 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 free.
This podcast is with a special friend of mine, Claire Andrews. She's a transcriptionist, a captionist, a conscious captionist, a love warrior, and an all-around heart-centered person, bringing light to the people in her environment, and then bringing light to people in the social media environment. People all over the world tune in to her posts that are always positive and always about love as a revolution in our current time, in our current world. She's got over 5,000 Facebook friends, and she's made a mission of spreading love and connection between not only people, but all life forms and beings. And one of the things that she's always promoting is love is not just something that we talk about, but it comes down to action. It comes down to taking action. So, enjoy Claire Andrews as we get into the Love Revolution. All right, now I'm going to read a quote from the book called Creating Deliberate Happiness by a personal friend of mine and mentor, spiritual guide named Antoinette Spurrier. Both Claire and I know this woman and have experienced her light. Visualize and affirm abundance. See yourself in abundant circumstances. The repetition and restatement of any affirmation creates an energy empowered by the act of visualization. Mentally practice seeing yourself in abundant circumstances. As you visualize, combine the image of abundance with powerful words affirming their truth of the dynamic supply of the universe. The universe is limitless. The universe is expanding its own possibilities of creation. The divine directs creation, but you are a divine co-creator with that dynamic source. Your feelings, at some level, if not being good enough to receive abundance, prosperity, and expansive generosity from the divine, comes from a restricted sense of self-worth. Yet the spark of divinity resides in your nature. Part of the creator of all is resident within, co-creating with you in a dance of light and possibility. When did you start limiting your dreaming with a lesser vision of yourself? So that quote's from Antoinette Spurrier. Obviously it's inspirational, but the point is that it's empowering. She's talking about the light within each one of us as divine human beings. And that's exactly what Claire is talking about in her work and what she does. So we're going to open up and get into it. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Thanks. So Claire, tell us why you're here on planet Earth, what your mission is. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you reside, what you're into, and we'll get to what the Love Revolution is.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I am living right now in San Diego, University Heights area, and I am currently a court reporter, a deposition reporter, a stenographer, and I do transcription work as well on the side, helping the authors write their books and transcribing that for them. And then recently, I just started with a dear friend of mine a captioning business. So we are really excited about it. We're providing captioning at events and seminars and meetings and talks, and we are targeting the conscious community because we're very passionate about it, and we are on our own conscious journey ourselves. So we bring that energy into the environments, and it's all stuff that we're excited about and interested in, and we're really excited to be able to provide this service using our skills to people who need captioning and who could use it, and people with auditory disabilities, learning disabilities, hard of hearing, people who learn better through visual. A bunch of people, lots of people benefit through captioning, and so we want to bring that to the table, and especially in terms of the conscious community with helping people reach their highest potential. We believe everyone deserves to have that access to this wonderful content and exciting stuff going on. And so that's really what I'm pouring a lot of energy into right now and excited about. And I know that is definitely a mission of mine and a purpose for me that has just lit up my heart. And it kind of all started through writing on my page, on my Love Revolution, and kind of starting there and opening up new doors and just following what was on my heart in each time and trusting that would lead eventually to a true path for me, and something that felt really, really in alignment with where I know that my purposes and my life is going. And right now it's feeling right on track, and I'm really, really excited about it. So
Right on. Thank you. So just for the listeners out there, what is a conscious community, or what do you mean when you say we're providing a service for the conscious community? So in a way, describe what a conscious community is to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's a great question. A conscious community to me would be, a heart-centered community, a community where everyone's attempting to become their greatest versions and be aware of how, we're affecting everything and everyone around us, to be responsible for our own energy, our own light, our own choices, and to be able to look at yourself through a microscope and to be able to still forgive yourself through everything, love yourself, accept yourself, and move forward. And I think conscious communities are very daring and exciting because they're challenging lots of normal, typical, run-of-the-mill, daily lifestyles that we're surrounded by, and kind of causing everyone to really look at what their own truth is.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, that's a great description. I feel where I live, encompasses a lot of that here in San Diego. There's these unique bubbles, and I think you and I recognize them, and that's we kind of flow in and out of them depending on what our task is for the day or for the week. But from what I heard you say there, a lot of that has to do with being conscious. So of course you're talking about a conscious community, but when you're talking about your awareness and how it affects other people's throughout the day, like your actions, your words, your interactions with, say,
right.
If you're purchasing something, the clerk behind the counter, all those little things is what you're talking about. Being present, being conscious. And from what I see and hear from you and knowing you and watching and listening to your posts and reading your posts, they're always trying to bring the viewer or the listener into this place where they stop what they're doing and they think. And they think about something, and it's usually love driven. And so we should probably get into what you define as love. And I know this is a really tough question, right? Like everybody has a different definition for love, like they do maybe for God. But what is the love revolution in your eyes, and why did you start it, and why do you have 5,000 friends on Facebook? Why do you have people listening and chiming into your posts and what you're saying, and with such positivity, with such upliftment? So I guess the question is, what is love?
I knew this question was going to come. So,
well, you call yourself a love revolution, so there's no way that I can interview you without asking you, okay, you're at the forefront of a revolution.
yes.
No, it's not a political revolution. It's not a it's not a environmental revolution. It's not a religious revolution. It's a love revolution. So
Right.
if you're going to call yourself that, I'm going to ask you. So what is love? What is a love revolution? What are you doing? How's this happening? How are people chiming in? And how are people connecting with you? Why are so many people on board with the love revolution?
Well, first of all, I think why so many people are on board with it is because it rings true. The truth speaks to us so deeply, more than we realize. And when we hear the truth and we feel the truth and we know the truth, it's like a magnet. It's like a firefly to a light. And I think our society right now, always, not even only right now, really is yearning, though, and desiring for connection and for a different set of eyes to look at the world, to react to the world, to just be in this world, to be able to handle and with grace everything that's going on, and to act with integrity. And I think people really desire that at their heart's core. And I guess when you ask me the definition of love, I'm going to actually refer to a quote by Matt Kahn, which is one of my teachers and mentors. And I just appreciate his definition, and I'd like to read it and then maybe expand on it a little bit, if that's all right.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So he says, love is not a feeling you are waiting to embody. Love is not being emotionally high all the time. Love is the response of kindness, care, and compassion that you offer yourself and others throughout their highest triumphs or their most insurmountable moments of pain. Love is the response of greater support, not a high of any kind. Love is not a feeling. Love is the one who supports and nurtures the experience or throughout the duration of any feeling, not any feeling in particular. When love is not a feeling, what can bump you out of it? Love is the harmony that either engulfs one heart or unites two hearts, when either one or both are willing to serve the happiness of another without excluding themselves. So that's Matt Kahn's one of his definitions of love that I feel speaks a lot, because it states how love is not a feeling, it's not temporary. Love is an action, love is a being, love is a vibration. It's not something fleeting. Another great little snippet that I have about love is it yearns for eternal joy, and it's ready and willing to wait for its satisfaction. Love is not temporary.
Okay. So here's what I hear in there. And of course, we're trying to define something that's, nearly
Right.
indefinable, but we have to give it a shot, right? And I
Right.
think everybody out there, everybody that's alive and has a heartbeat wants love. And they may not admit it to themselves,
Exactly.
but they want it. And when it comes their way, whether it be random or whether it be deliberate from someone else, they feel it. And some people don't. They get such a lack of love in their life that when they get deliberate love given to them or offered to them, they don't know how to even accept it. They don't know how to receive it. And
Right.
it's such a crushing thing to witness, and it happens now and then in my life. I've just seen it a few times. I've seen it more than a few times, but I've seen it, and I'm not going to recall like a specific case, but it's a way of giving that hurts, but it hurts good. It's like giving until it hurts, and
Sacrifice.
There you go. Okay, so another word that falls into those definitions: sacrifice. It's a giving of a part of yourself that's large enough to be noticed, right? When it's given away. Now it's not large enough to be noticed in a sense of lack, like you gave something away and now you lack something. It's the opposite. It's
exactly.
like you give something away and it's noticed that amount of energy has been offered and transferred to another being, and that you don't. It's funny, the giver doesn't appear like they lack anything. As a matter of fact, they sort of get charged, and they step into actually a new abundance. So it's this weird giving and re-giving. It makes me think of Walter Russell. He's always talking about the nature of the universe being giving and re-giving.
Yes.
But I liked what Matt Kahn says there, and I've listened to some of his works that you've shared with me, and he's right on. He's got a very true, authentic sense about his words and about his delivery, and I don't think you can fake that sort of thing. Right. So even though we're talking about something that's indescribable, we all can still resonate with it.
Right.
We all still know what it is. Now, the other thing that I heard throughout that is Matt's version is describing what love is not a lot. And this is the negation or the deconstructive model. And of course, you know me as an individualist, I'm big into the deconstruction of our paradigms to find out what's beneath that. And those tend to be more universal and more true and more interconnective. And so here's where I'm going with that. I also heard in that definition all these things that are beyond time, or that are universal, or are energetically connected. And so when I think of love, I always relate it to this idea of interconnectivity. Everything in the universe is connected to everything else. And when we lose sight of that, or when we lose the feeling of that, we start to feel separate. And I think we start to feel a lack of love. Although it may be an illusion, we still feel it that way, or we perceive it that way. So, yeah, that was right on. I like what Matt says. And then I know you're also inspired by Viktor Frankl. You're inspired by Marianne Williamson. And are you inspired by is there anybody else that I know that you're inspired by? Or can you talk about those two people?
Yeah. I also am very inspired by Barbara DeAngelis. She actually was one of the first people who kind of blew me open to the concept of self-realization and love in general in her book Soul Shifts. And that started my journey through spirituality and consciousness and discovering love, and really projecting me into a whole kind of delving into like the deep questions of what is love, where does it come from, really wanting to know and learning and figuring it out, and then at the same time also being able to energetically reverberate or create love in myself, in my life. I wanted to become the best, like the most authentic, I guess the best is a funny word, but vessel of love. And how do I do that? And how could I be that and Marianne Williamson as well, definitely, and Matt Kahn. And I recently just got back into Viktor Frankl with his book, Man's Search for Meaning. And because I find it so fascinating how I'm not sure if, you told me you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
But he, he was in the Nazi concentration camps and it's amazing, he survived. And he kind of saw human nature and at its most terrible moments, saddest, most depressing times. And he could see what kept people alive, the people who survived. And it was a sense of purpose, which connected to a sense of love. It was a lot of times that they felt they had someone to live for, or they felt they had a purpose to come home to, whether it was they had a book that they had to finish writing, or the love that they felt for their spouse and their children. Viktor Frankl also talks about how his wife, the love of his wife, kept him alive, even though she actually didn't survive and she wasn't even there when he came out. It was the kind of idea and the thought of her love that he contributes to his survival. So I don't know if that was all of your question, but I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it gets down to it, like what resonated with me in there was a sense of purpose.
Correct.
Okay, and I don't normally equate love, this universal interconnectivity, to a sense of purpose, but I can see how it can be. This is in Viktor Frankl as the individual, but when you ask really deep metaphysical or mystical questions, like why are we here? How is the universe continuing? And then maybe the biggest one is, why is the universe here? Like, why would a creator even create, right? There's this idea of a sense of purpose. What's the purpose? So I can see how having a sense of purpose can pull you through
right,
just about anything. And if your sense of purpose is charged with something universally powerful like love, I can see how it can help you wake up each day and put one foot in front of the other and grin and bear some of the things that are nearly impossible to make it through.
Right.
The other thing that I heard you were saying immediately was this self-realization. This cracking yourself open into spirituality through self-realization, and that comes up a lot with me and all spiritual paths, is this self-realization, right? So that leads me to another question: is if love is real and love is here, isn't it that we can only experience it in the self? I mean, isn't reality only experienced within each one of us, behind our eyes, so to speak, or in our hearts, so to speak? So therein lies this connection between love, this universal,
mm-hmm.
and the human self. So I don't know if you can talk about that, but I think very few people, when they speak about love, they kind of, oftentimes it's presented in such a way that it's something that's extended out. It's
right.
always outward. It's always like offering a hand, or offering something outside yourself. But I'd like to talk about, well, without the self, there's nothing to extend. And so, of course, I wanted to know if you could kind of talk about that. Do you have any? I know you have some study in existential philosophy. You and I've talked about Nietzsche and
mm-hmm.
Dostoevsky and Kant and some others. So what do you think? What do you think about the self or self-realization in relationship to this thing called love?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, how I would start off with that is that, first of all, I come from the belief that there is only love. There's nothing else exists. That's the truth. There's nothing else. So we are love. That's just what we are. And the journey through life is just a constant remembrance of where we are. It's a journey of what we are. It's a journey to remembrance that we are love. And therefore, with the realization that we are love and the awareness that that's what you are and there's nothing else, comes the immediate response and reaction of that love. If that kind of is speaking to what you're saying, I can expand. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, that is what I'm talking about. The only thing that sort of pops in my head is since we're talking about something so hard to talk about, what do you think of tough love, right? So is tough love still love? Because if we are only love, or as you say, that ultimately love is the only thing that's real.
Correct.
So when we see things that are like, let's say, hate, when we see and witness hate,
right,
what you're trying to tell us, and I'm challenging you here, is what we're looking at is actually love. We just can't tell, or we're sort of perceiving it incorrectly. So I guess my question is, if we're only love, what is hate? And that's one question, and that's a big one. The other question is, what do you think about tough love? You know, and there's all different forms of tough love. The most common would probably be like parent to child. Right. It's if you don't love your child with some sort of structure and discipline, then you enable their sense of freedom, but their sense of freedom may end up being quite destructive to themselves and others. And where do you draw the line as far as parenting or providing a loving structure that is not enabling this this destructive behavior in the new human, the new child?
Correct.
So there's two big questions there, you know, tough love and what do we call the things that don't look like love to us?
So the things that don't look like love to us, those are both awesome questions. So I would say every action that we're doing is searching for love or wanting love or expressing love. So when we see an act of hate, it comes from somebody's lack of love, and they are searching for love in any way that they know that they can. And they have lost sight of the reality and the truth of what they are and what they were created as love. And they are acting out of a forgetting of that love. So if we can look at somebody who's committing an act of hate and know that it comes from because they have had a lack of love and are looking for love kind of in all the wrong places, that quote.
Urban cowboy.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been there.
That they are thinking, you know, love could come from notoriety, from somebody thinking that they're badass, or, you know, all different places where love doesn't exist. And that's where we get the power hungry people, because, you know, and our president and everything, that it's people that are looking for love because they think they're going to find it in the attention. They think they're going to find it in the power. They think they're going to find it in the money. They think if I, you know, do this hateful act, they're not consciously thinking this, but because we all desire, search for love, because that's what we are and we're trying to find it, that they are doing a hateful act and hoping to have the reaction of feeling like they're powerful, which they translate to love. So it's not it's not conscious acting. That's what hate is. It's obviously not conscious. And that if we can look at hate through the eyes of love and know that it's all a cry for love, it brings about more love in ourselves, because it's compassion. It's not allowing hateful acts to happen. I mean, I'm not saying that if somebody comes at you to try to beat you up and you just stand there and let it happen. It's through the compassion and the forgiveness of the person, committing that act. But you still stand up for yourself, because you love yourself and you love that person and you don't want to have to do it. But, there's a certain point you're not going to sit there and accept somebody to berate you or anything like that. But we can look at the person and know that it's all coming from their forgetfulness. And we can also have compassion, because we all have forgotten and we've all committed actions that we're embarrassed of, and we've all done things that we're not proud of. And it helps us to more easily forgive, to have compassion, to look at others through the eyes of love. And so I guess that kind of answers that first question. And then,
well, I'm kind of stopping you real quick,
okay,
because you're kind of talking about tough love now. You moved into it.
Correct.
So if somebody's going to berate you, or let's say somebody does something much worse, where they're challenging your physical body, or your life, or your loved one's life.
Correct.
So is defending yourself to the death, or your family's defending your family to the death, is that an act of love?
If it's what's happening is the person is completely taking you to they're going to kill you, or they're going to kill someone else in your family. You definitely have you love the being that you are. You love, what you're doing on this planet, and you have a mission, and that is warranted for you to,
So that's self-love.
Exactly.
Protecting yourself at that point is self-love.
Correct.
So what about your actions? Let's say you hurt the person attempting to hurt you.
Correct.
So is that tough love? Did you just inflict, hypothetical injury upon your attacker in an act of love? Is
correct?
Is that possible?
Yeah. Well, connecting through tough love, like you're saying with children,
right.
A mother and a child, so that kind of goes to the concept of freedom, which is personal freedom, personal choice, and which the two differences between freedom and a license. So a child can say, I want to touch this hot stove and I'm going to do it if I want to, and then they get burned, but the parent can look at the child and say, no, don't touch that, you're going to get burned, because the parent knows better, right?
Right.
So the child does have, so take that to as we're adults, right? We have license to do whatever we want. We can touch the hot stove if we feel like it. But we know that that's not going to be good for us. So we have the freedom to choose, just like with the choice of love and doing what is good and what is right and what is what we know is, our the correct choice. And so with freedom comes, I just totally lost my train of thought.
Well, no, I get what you're getting at
yeah.
with freedom.
Right.
Freedom is a big part of being able to love, I think.
Correct.
Because if it's just like the age-old adage, right, is that I can't make you love me.
Yeah.
Right? Right? So if I restrict your freedom, then there's no way you'll be able to love me.
Correct.
So love is something that is, I mean, I guess it would have to be somehow linked to being free, or pretty free, or linked to freedom, because as soon as you pigeonhole somebody, you know, physically or emotionally or spiritually or mentally, and demand them to love you, it's gone. It's impossible. It's gone.
Correct.
It's not going to happen. So I'll, you know, so maybe you can kind of speak to that, about the connection between freedom. I think you were going there. The connection between freedom and love.
Yes. Thank you. Excuse me. Yeah, that freedom is free from the compulsion to do whatever you want, is also freedom, or to do whatever your desires are telling you, or freedom from, you know, the automatic response that we all have sometimes to what's going on around us. We have freedom, we have choice. So freedom and love are completely connected, because we have the choice to love, or we have the choice to not. We have the choice to touch the hot stove. We have the choice to not. We can, you know, take pleasure in things that are temporary, and then we can also say, you know, maybe this is not the best choice for me, so I'm going to, you know, hold off on following what I feel like doing at this moment, and that's where freedom comes in. You know, we could sleep in every day. We have that choice and that license to do what we want. But then as the day goes on, we're not as productive. And then we all of a sudden realize, wow, I didn't get anything done today. Yeah, I had the freedom to do that, but now I have the freedom to make a different choice. And now I have the freedom to, you know, to do what I think is going to be better. And so then that ties back into self-love and to choice, as well as loving another person. It all is intertwined and all connected, because once you can start having the freedom from your compulsions or your immediate gratifications, then starts cultivating a stronger love that just starts to happen. Because, you know, a lot of people mistake love sometimes for just, you know, an immediate whatever, like, I feel like doing, that's what I'm going to do. And that's going to be, you know, I'm going to live this, like, loving life, right? Because I get to do whatever I want to do. I can do it at any time. And then people aren't fulfilled by that.
Yeah, so okay, there's a really good question, right? So why aren't they fulfilled by that? And this kind of loads me up with, you know, what's more powerful, the philosophy of love or the philosophy of freedom, which we kind of got into that. But if you're going to have one as like your champion, would you rather be a proponent of freedom, or would you rather be a proponent of love? And the other sort of point that kind of stirs in me when thinking about that is, and this falls a little bit into the political or socioeconomic or sociopolitical sphere that's happening now in our world here in America, is there's a lot of people in, like, say, the New Age movement, and there's a lot of people in just the little bit younger generation that have a sense of liberal freedom. And I'm all for liberty, but can that sense of liberal freedom become destructive? And I mean, I kind of know where I stand on that, but I wonder where you stand on that. You know, if everybody can do whatever they want whenever they want, which sounds great. I mean, if I sold that to you, you'd buy it. It sounds great. It sounds like utopia. But is that love? Is that the way to go?
No, and that's where I was saying that freedom is different than license. Freedom is the act to, or the choice to act beyond your compulsions and beyond your immediate wants and needs. Society talks a lot about freedom, but this typically refers to unrestrained indulgence, which is license, and it's not freedom. So as much as we can say that freedom is doing whatever I want, that's not freedom. Freedom is the choice. Because if you could say, like, is somebody who's addicted to alcohol, but he can't say no to having more drinks, is that person free? No. You know,
well, they're free to walk through their own living hell.
True. There you go.
Right?
Good point.
But I get what I'm just sort of playing the other side here, but
yeah. Well, I mean, they have that choice, but I think that no one would agree that somebody who's addicted to a substance is free. You know, I maybe they would, but that's kind of where too.
So I'm stopping you right here because it sounds like to be free of your compulsions and free of your obsessions and free of your addictions is not only free, but what you're really talking about there is being empowered and empowered consciously.
Yes.
So, for example, let's say you're a person who's addicted to alcohol and you can't say no, but then somehow you recover.
Right.
And you get it under control to where it's no longer a compulsion or addiction. And then one day you decide, well, I want to have a drink, and you do. And then it's not a compulsion anymore, right? So in that sense, you had a drink and you made a consciously free choice to have a drink. Right. And I don't know if there's something in the power of being present and conscious when you choose that is loving or that is free. That's where I'm trying to go with that.
Yes.
Because all of our compulsions and all of our addictions and all of our neuroses, they tend to live in our memory, right? They tend to live in our past, and we carry them around with us. And we only see that we're not bound by them in these rare moments of being present. And something sort of, I don't know, something happens to you where you're really excited, happy, loved, or exuberant, and you all of a sudden forget that you needed the drink in those moments, right? Yeah. But when they fade away and you go back into your memory, you go back to your habitual, well, many people go back to their habitual compulsions and obsessions and okay, so if we're sort of unpacking this, love and the love revolution has to do with not only love, this universal principle, but freedom. And then it not only has to do with love and freedom, it has to do with consciousness. Right?
Yep.
Is that fair enough to say?
I think that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the reason why I'm driving it this way is because we can read posts, we can listen to podcasts, we can listen to songs and watch movies and read books that all talk about love, maybe brilliantly, but that doesn't mean that we're living in it or practicing it.
Right.
So what you do by connecting people in these ways is oftentimes there's this element of being present in your quotes and in your posts and in the things that you say when I'm around you and the things that you do. They bring things right into the moment. And to me, that has to do with being conscious. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. Thank you. That was beautifully said. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Consciousness, which brings about action, which is another extremely important part of love, is action. We can, like you said, we can talk about love, we can read about love, we can study it, we can sit and read it and even feel it through studying it or reading it or thinking about it or dreaming about it. And then I think that's what can project the desire to act upon this cultivated love that you're kind of accessing. Like, you're accessing that love vibration, and if you can move past any sort of fear or hesitation that you have through acting out in love, then that can come the next step, where you can actually act out of love and be that love and go into the world, which is a majority of the time acting out of the opposite. You know, how many times are we told if somebody treats you wrong, it's okay for you to treat them wrong, or if someone's mean to you, you can be mean to them back and ignore them and walk away and all that. Not that walking away is bad, but you know, that we're just taught that way. Especially, you know what I think of it, especially in terms of when I was really focusing last year a lot on the dating world. And that to me is so perpetuated through books and media of how to kind of manipulate people into caring about you, into liking you, into, you know, into a relationship. And that's where I think there's so much lack of love, is it's in the, you know, the books about, gosh, my roommate was reading one and we were laughing about it because it was all about the rules, right?
Yeah.
And how if you ignore the guy for a week, and then when he responds, only respond in one word. It's all about the rules, how to get someone to fall in love with you or to like you.
So there's no freedom there.
There's no freedom there. Right. And it's the same thing with this, the dating world right now. It's kind of a little bit on that edge of, especially with online dating as well, and this disconnection and this, how can I get this person? How can I present myself so that this person will love me and will care about me? And it's like the opposite of love, or the tricks to do to get somebody to like you. And it's the opposite. It's like we're taught in society so much the opposite of what is true, because it's like a protection mode. It's how can I protect myself so that I get the least amount of pain, the least amount of feelings in general. But then on that side, when you're protecting yourself from the pain of, you know, rejection or whatever, you're also cutting yourself off from the ecstasy of love and the ecstasy on the other side. So there's no way to live where you're protecting yourself from one side and then expect to experience the other. You're just going to have a very...
That's bold and courageous. That's a pretty powerful statement, because what you're talking about is if you're fearful, then okay. So if I'm hearing what you're saying correctly, if you're fearful, you're protecting yourself. If you're protecting yourself, you're hiding. If you're hiding, you're not authentic. If you're not authentic, you can't be vulnerable. If you're not vulnerable, you have, well, essentially you don't have a lot of power, and you don't have a lot of freedom. And so it's just really strange that all those fall into fear, I think, or some sort of fear-based emotion. So yeah, that's a good statement, that you can't have the ecstasy that love can offer if you're protecting yourself. It's a really we can all relate to that, because we've all experienced rejection, we've all experienced heartache, we've all experienced pain, and maybe even, you know, people experience abuse, you know, all kinds of abuse by someone that they loved or are loving or think they love. It's really a diabolical thing we're talking about here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not love itself, but the process of
Diabolical.
of seeking love or bringing love into your life. It can be a bit sticky,
Right.
you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, and all of these ways, too, this is kind of a bold statement, but all of these ways are all a path to love, because that's where we're all going to end up. So even through it's kind of like what you were saying earlier, through the deconstruction, isn't that the apophatic
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
which is finding love through what is not love.
Yes.
So even through all these ways, it will always come back. So through the way of kind of, if somebody says like, well, how do I learn to follow my heart? How do I learn to love? What's the answer to that? And it's almost like by asking that question with the intention, you will always come to the answer. So first of all, great for asking the question, because with that is going to become, no matter what you do, if you start taking action, which love is action, then you are going to start deconstructing everything you've ever known about what you've thought love is or anything.
Yeah.
And then it's going to come down to the core of what you're going to find, and you're going to sift through, and you're going to be like a gold miner, and you're going to find these little nuggets of, oh, this is what love is, because I've done this other thing and that didn't feel like love, and that's not love. And I've tried this way, but the only way that you can do it is by action, is by going and doing things, trying things, learning things, by being out there and thinking, well, will I get love this way? And attempting to do it, even though it's scary. And then, oh, no, I didn't. And then you realize that leads to a whole nother realization. Oh, wait, I am love. Like, I don't need to try to get it anywhere. But yeah, that's all part of the journey.
Yes. So that's, I'm a big advocate of the apophatic process of knowledge. And in this case, applying that process to I'd say, learning what love is or experiencing love. So, of course, I agree with you there. Very well said. And I think a concept that people should hear, So I'm glad you said it here on this little podcast. But it also made me think, of course there's courage involved there, which I think we should come back to, but
yeah.
I'm going to see if this actually works with what we just talked about, because Walter Russell, although he's a scientist, he's also a philosopher. Mm-hmm. And he deals a lot with universals, and he deals with love in some of his books. This book is about light, but one of the things that kind of stuck with me is this. It is a deconstruction of things that reveals the truth, and he's talking about here the way that opposites work. And so he's talking about opposites, meaning like light and dark, electricity, magnetism, male female, yin and yang, up and down, matter and spirit. And so I'm going to read this little quote, and we'll see if it works, if it applies
awesome.
to this. Okay, so this is on electric desires. So I know that sounds strange, but here we go. One desire is for separation from oneness into unbalanced multiplicity, and the other is for voidance of multiplicity into balanced oneness. One desire is for action, and the other is for rest. The two desires of mind constitute the give and re-giving principle, by means of which all things in nature grow or unfold by appearing from the void of rest in the kingdom of heaven, from which all creating things appear, disappear, and reappear in sequential cycles. I know that's pretty heavy language. But he goes on to say, these two opposite desires are characteristic of all effects of motion. All animal, vegetable, and mineral life seeks action and rest alternately. This explains the mystery of matter appearing from space to be alternately swallowed back by space.
Wow.
So, he's not talking about love, but he's talking about really essential things like motion and time and matter and space and spirit and matter.
Which are all love.
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to throw that in there. We'll see how people react to it. But, what I think is so brilliant about the way you said that is that whatever you think right now is love, you owe it to yourself to deconstruct that. And maybe you're right. Maybe you got it. Maybe you have it all. But if you don't ever contemplate it and check it out and deconstruct it and offer yourself the idea that you could be wrong and that there could be something greater, you could find out how to be more vulnerable, more empowered, more balanced, more giving, less fearful, right? So that was, that's interesting.
Yeah. That's the beauty of life, is there's always going to be the chance to be more, like you said, to act more loving, to act more compassionate, to see yourself expanding and growing, and because there's no limit to our potential. So we can keep watching that and watch our own definition of love change and grow and expand. And I'm excited about it, because I even think about in the future listening to this and hearing our perceptions and hearing it through my future experiences and future, because I'm sure that things will shift and change and grow. And that's actually one of my posts and one of my hashtags, claim to grow. I don't claim to know, I claim to grow, because that's another important kind of disclaimer, I think, is that, we're each on our own journey and we're each discovering our own way, and that anything that we hear, we need to challenge. Anything that we read, I feel like we need to challenge all of that, because everyone's learning. If you're on this earth, you don't know everything and you're learning. So I always like to say that disclaimer, because it's like we're all just trying our best. And also, though, with the knowledge that this message and how we're talking and this transmission of our energy will attract the correct listeners and viewers and people who are meant to hear it. And that that, because a lot of times I get worried, if I say something, will someone take this the wrong way? Will they interpret that wrong? And so I find myself over explaining a lot, but I have to kind of sit back with the knowing and the acceptance of the love that is, and that the right people will hear it, will know it, will take it for something that will touch them, will help them, will challenge them, and that it won't, in a sense, do any harm, or if it does do harm, that it will lead someone else to a greater understanding or awakening of another aspect of love.
Beautiful. Okay, so Claire, now we're getting down into the roots of expressions of love, what it's like to live and experience love, how we can access love through an apophatic deconstruction process. But now I have a question. Do you or do you not believe in unconditional love?
Yes, I believe in it.
You believe it's real, that human beings can embody it or express it?
I believe in it. That's a great question. I don't know if we can embody it completely, because I think if we did, then we would be pure love and we wouldn't exist in our human bodies.
There you go. I like that answer.
Yeah.
I could go there, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that... I think when we look at enlightened beings, you know, such as Jesus, Buddha, that when you get to a point of pure unconditional love, that's when the message and the messenger are one. Mm-hmm. And that is when the body is dissolved and disintegrated, because that's God. That's pure.
Okay, so God is love.
Exactly.
Okay. So
and that's a great, thank you for bringing that up, because I wanted to say, anytime I say love, it can be interpreted as God for anybody, however anybody so calls that. The universe,
right?
God, love, it's all the same.
Gotcha. Okay. And then my this question, this is well, you're kind of already talking about it, but it seems to me there's this connection. Well, we've kind of figured out there's this connection between self and love. There's this connection between self-realization and experiencing love. So along that thread, how do you find the courage, or how do you create, or how do you come up with and express the courage to love radically, love wholeheartedly, love what you would consider fully or empowered? How do you do that? How do you find the courage to do that?
Well, that is what I would assume is that's an everyday conscious decision to constantly move through your own blocks, your own fears, because we're always going to have, well, maybe not always, but we're going to have fear. And to imagine that I can't do this unless I feel okay, or unless I don't feel afraid, any of those things, then you're never going to do anything. So in order to consciously, constantly move through your fear, that's part of courage. And loving radically and loving courageously is the only way. It's what the Love Revolution is about. It's constantly being able to be aware of the love that you are. And I assume that it becomes a lot easier with time, because I've noticed it has. And through it all, also having the opposing side, right? Here's the polarity of laughing and being lighthearted about it, because we've gone into so much depth in terms of love, and it's all fun. This is all exciting. This is all a process of love itself, because it's our way of exploring through our human minds and brains and hearts. But really, it's kind of all just another journey to love as we're going through it. And it's kind of funny when you think about it, because that's kind of what it has to all come down to. This is all kind of our own little choice of game of how we want to come back to our remembrance of what we really are. And this is a fun way for me to do it. And I hope that other people who enjoy this journey can join in and also take the whole lighthearted side of love and life, and that it's also so easy. It's the easiest choice, at the same time the hardest. Mm-hmm. Because it's easy, because it's what we are. And if we don't overthink it and we just are it, and we could totally embody and accept that, we would be walking means of love. So it's a funny, I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, if you're not having fun in life, then you need to check yourself. because
Yeah.
you're about to wreck yourself.
Right.
You need to start going, okay, something's wrong, right?
Right.
Like depression is basically it's basically like a deeper part of yourself, maybe your soul, telling you that you need to reassess your direction, reassess what you're doing, right? And so you should be having fun and joy.
Yeah.
Life should be good, right? It doesn't matter so much of your circumstances. You can be rich or poor, or you can be hungry or full, and you can have all your needs met or not, and none of those things actually dictate whether or not you have love.
Very true.
It should be pretty obvious now that what society says is the goal, that many, many, many people who attain that goal, they don't have love. Mm-hmm. A lot of times the most celebrated people, celebrities, end their lives early for all kinds of reasons. So lack of love somewhere in there.
Right, that they're just misinterpreting or misidentifying or just going about the wrong way. And it's funny, as I say the wrong way, I'm like, I don't know, that doesn't resonate with me. But, because we're all just doing the best we can. But, yeah, I guess that's that they're just not aware of the love that's there, that they are. And that's, I kind of, like, I don't think that life is meant to be all joyous and happy and, like, we're always supposed to be completely loving and blissed out, because part of love too is we're human and we're going to mess up and we're going to not be loving, and then we get to take that journey back to remembering and to being loving. Mm-hmm. And to go, man, what I just did, that was not a loving action. That didn't feel good. And then we can go on the other end and be and
correct it.
Correct it.
Next time I have an opportunity like this, I'm going to do better.
Right.
Change it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And make that conscious choice. And the more that we make the conscious choice of love, the more natural it becomes.
Yes.
And then the more just natural beings of love we are. But it's the constant, in the beginning, the constant awareness and the constant choices, even with our thoughts in our head, that's kind of where it starts. If you're talking to yourself negatively, if you're, it's becoming aware of your inner dialogue, which is then going to affect the way that you're treating other people, the way that you're acting. And I know this from personal experience. I've been through periods of depression and intense sadness, and it comes down to what it came down to for me was my inner dialogue and my inner voice, and not being aware of that voice, and then coming to a place of listening, recognizing where I was at, and kind of realizing that it was coming from parts of me that were feeling abandoned or unheard or unloved. So that in itself was kind of also a journey to discovering more about love and a depth of love. So that's where, as well, that life doesn't have to be happy and joyous and positive all the time, because then how of love and our desire for it.
Yes, indeed. Well, that's well said, and it's been interesting to talk about love in such a dynamic way.
Thanks,
good. It's neat. I think people should hear it, you know.
I agree.
They probably think these things but don't articulate them or don't hear others articulate them. So we're gonna wrap it up here a little bit. We're gonna wrap it up here now. Just I wanted to say, if you want to plug anything, how can people get in touch with you, or how can people find what you're doing, and maybe you can describe your loving act of conscious captions and what that's doing, and or just how people can follow you, how people can get in touch with you, and if there's anything else that you want to end with, please do.
Thank you. I would say so conscious captioning, we are working on our website soon, so I can't plug that quite yet, but our email address is consciouscaptioning@gmail.com, which is spelled, captioning is spelled CAPTIONING. And so we're so excited. It's just the new beginning for us. So just we're available to caption conferences, talks, meetings, anything anybody would like in written form.
You just did a TED Talk here, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Is that the first TED Talk ever captioned?
That's a great question. I want to say it's the first one I've ever seen.
Yeah.
When you watch them online, you never see captioning.
Right.
So that's what we're excited about too, is hopefully, I'm not sure how the video is going to come out, but we hope that there's a little bit of our screen in there of captioning. Because it was live at the event, it's different than when the video is captioned online. But we hope so, because that's what it's about, bringing the awareness that this is a great addition, and will bring more people to the content. And it was unfortunate that it was kind of a last minute that we ended up captioning for them, because it's a great thing to advertise for an event ahead of time.
Yeah. And
because it will encourage more people to come, touch more people, and so that's kind of where we're at right now with it, as well as helping writing books. So if anybody has, if you're an author and you need some help writing your book in terms of transcription work, it's a great tool, because you can record your thoughts, your inspirations, your interviews with somebody, and we can transcribe them for you, and then you'll have them in written form to be able to quickly edit and add into books.
That's awesome.
Into your book.
That's a great feature.
And we're open to we're still discovering how awesome our skill is and how great we can use it to help. So, and anybody else has any other ideas with how they can use us, we're open to it, because we just want to be able to serve with the skill that we have, which is on a little machine typing in live time.
So stenographer.
Exactly.
Stenographer style.
Stenography, yeah.
Live captioning in the present moment.
In the moment.
As it's happening.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then how can people find you? I know you have an Instagram account, and I know you post a lot of things.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So the Instagram... Facebook. Okay, correct. Instagram it's a Love Revolution. And Facebook is Claire Andrews, CLAIRE Andrews, ANDREWS. But that's a really good question, because I don't know how people will differentiate me from any other Claire Andrews. I guess, like what you did, Claire Andrews Conscious Captioning, if you look that up.
Yeah, you could Google that.
Google that?
Yeah.
I know, I guess I got to figure out a way to more easily find me on Instagram.
And then you don't have a YouTube channel yet, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay, that helps too. Google searches that. Well, I'm going to just read one of your posts that I really like from Instagram. No matter what you do or don't do, commit to loving yourself radically, no matter what.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming and sharing your love with myself, but also with the world.
Yay! Thank you
It's
so
a
much.
love revolution.
Yeah, it is. Well, thank you for sharing. Everything you said was very resonated with me, and so thank you for all your input and sharing the love.
Absolutely. We'll do it again.
Sounds good.
All right.